You want to talk about the C's?
So we're talking about the C's. So off camera, we're doing like a, between 7 minutes, we kind of take a little break, talk amongst ourselves. We somehow got to Kyrie and the Celtics. And I think it's kind of apropos thinking, Danny Ainge stepped down. It's understandable. He had a heart attack 2 years ago. Maintain your health, most important thing. I get it. It's been a stressful year to be a GM, and all these fans thinking that you're not a good GM, which is some bullshit. He was a great GM, but
Unbelievable GM.
Makes sense. He's stepping down. What doesn't make sense is why Brad Stevens is stepping down from being the head coach to become the general manager. And well, it maybe makes some sense, but I don't know. All right, I'm gonna let you talk first. Give me the objective viewpoint from not a Celtics fan. What are your thoughts on this? Is it gonna work? Is it gonna not? What are your thoughts?
Well, So I think Stevens overall, will it work or not? I think it will be. I don't think it's going to be as good as Danny Ainge in the job that he's done. I'm just going to say that.
Well, yeah,
and it's hard to top what Danny Ainge has done. People have they're like, oh my God, he hasn't been that good. No, I mean, Boston's been amazing the time that Danny Ainge is. He's done basically a lot of the right moves that you could have done for the Celtics, and
it's not Danny Ainge's fault that Kyrie did what he did.
Bailed town. Yes. Literally bailed town. Literally, I mean, there's a lot of players that so many bad breaks. I'd say for Celtics, Kyrie bailing town. Gordon Hayward never getting a real chance to play with the Celtics.
His first less than an hour into his Celtics career, yeah, the terrible injury.
Didn't know that Kemba Walker decided to have chronic arthritis in his knee. That's freaking terrible. But at the end of the season, he's got a little better. But I mean, still that's a managing problem that that could have been better seen. When it comes to Brad Stevens, though, I look at from a non-Celtics perspective, two things. One would just be, how aggressive he is in terms of just his lineups and stuff like that. His aggressiveness, and I feel like Danny Ainge was much more aggressive. His personality in terms of what he did was much more aggressive. He made the tough decisions. He was like, I'm going to trade away all the Boston stars. I mean, he's done some things that Boston fans haven't been happy with at first, but in the long term was the right move. Trade away Garnett and I mean, the fans absolutely shitted on him, but I mean that's the way to do. You got the damn fleece with the Nets by doing that, so that was the right move. Trade away Isaiah Thomas. I still remember that after that playoff series where he lost his sister, scored 53 points. That was Boston loved him, and he just traded him away, and just the fuck you doing? That's a betrayal. But it's a business. It's a damn business. He's a businessman, and he made the right move. I'm pretty sure at the end of the day, right? So, and then he's been a general manager that's been making the right business moves. And I don't know Brad Stevens wise. I think he's also a very tacky a tactician and good at making and building rosters. I don't know how aggressive he will be though in terms of doing that. I don't think he has the guts that Danny Ainge had to completely just turn about face on some of these players, especially as recently removed as a coach. I think that really is that could be a red flag. And then number two, I just feel in some ways he's more of a guy that brings out the best of role players. He really elevates role players. So maybe scouting draft wise, he could be really helpful. But I think managing star players, buying into stars, people were saying Brad Stevens, we want him to be the Pat Riley of Boston. Pat Riley, first of all, has won multiple championships before he became the president of basketball operations in Miami. He literally in 2006, he went down onto the coaches, onto the bench as coach to, guide the Heat to the title. Pat Riley's in another stratosphere. That guy, like, he's just like, his pitch to free agents is, we're in Miami, number one, no sales tax, no income tax and stuff like that. Number two, he puts the rings on the table. It's like, I've done this before. Brad hasn't done that, unfortunately, in that case, he hasn't gotten to the promised land. And so, in some ways, I don't know if he has that like level of sway, and if he can like, get that like star power and like actually like manage it that well. Because I feel like in terms of like his track record as a coach, his management of how well the Stars have played have been not as good as I hoped it would be. That's my take. But
so this is well thought. Well, I kind of agree with you in that. I think I fall into your camp. So when I first hear the news, like I audibly out loud with with relatives in earshot was like, what the fuck? Like audibly when I saw the blip on ESPN, I was like, what is this? Like Danny, right. Fine. Why is Brad Stevens the GM? Like, did he think he was doing a bad job as coach? Like, I didn't think he was that bad as a coach. And when you think about it from Brad's perspective, I'm just confused why he would do this. So when you think he was a great college basketball coach, if he stayed in college basketball, even if let's say he didn't go from Butler, maybe he stayed at Butler, and then he could have gotten any cream of the crop college basketball job he would have wanted. He would be seen, and he could, because he could do consistently well there, and he'd be seen as like a college basketball one of the greats. He was on track to be one of the greats of all time. And maybe it's hyperbolic, but what he did at Butler, as a college basketball fan, thinking about it, and also being a Duke fan, seeing Butler play Duke, like seeing how he brought those Butler teams to the fucking finals. This is before Butler made the Big East. They were still a mid-major team, right? He's a great coach. And you would think he would go to the Celtics. I mean, number one, it's one of the top two franchises in the NBA. It's the Lakers and Celtics. So I guess you never turn that down if they offer it to you. But you'd also think the allure of coaching in the NBA is that you don't have to recruit players. You don't have to consistently recruit players, deal with the hassle of like, they have to pass their classes, or they have to, this and that. And there's so much relative headache in college basketball, especially because you can't pay players, which is, dumb. Right. This is off topic, but I saw that like Twitter like is going to team up with like is going to have a program where college basketball players or college athletes can get paid for like tweets that they do, and like for name, image, and likeness. I don't know. I mean, that feels like a huge news. I don't know why people aren't talking about that enough. Maybe it's because name, image, likeness stuff is, Gavin Newsom signed the damn bill on the shop and nothing's happened. But anyways, that's a huge digression. Point is, you would think you go to the NBA so you don't have to deal with all of these hassles. You don't have to deal with having to recruit players that don't get paid, and you have to, do the cycle every year, and maybe coach with players that aren't the best cream of the crop at Butler, which wasn't a Big East team at that time. So
right.
You go to the Celtics, and you think, oh, now you're just going to have you can just coach these players. That's what you're doing. And so why do you go to become a GM, which involves more paperwork? Like now you're doing nothing but all the stuff that like college basketball coach hate about the college portion of it. Well, like the ones that transition to the NBA, that's what they don't like about college basketball. And like, why are you going into this step? It feels like weird from his perspective. And
feels weird.
So, it does. So this is all from my thinking. When I saw the news in the few hours, and then you alluded it to me off air, but we watched it. It was like the all-star cast of The Ringer. All the basketball minds at The Ringer. You got Bill Simmons, Ryan Russillo, Yeah, Jackie McMullen damn near is on the ringer all the time, and then
Yeah.
Kevin O'Connor, like Jesus, like and they're like they have insider information, they know what they're talking about. So I'm listening to them, and then the way they were describing, so Brad Stevens, he coaching is like taking a toll on him, and the bubble
Yeah.
going back and forth, and all of that, and I'm thinking the GM job is more stressful, man.
It is.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, is that even so? I'm listening to that and I'm thinking this makes even less sense. And
I
then
think I was gonna break it real quick because I was just gonna say that I think like one of the only benefits the GM has is that like they don't have to travel as much. So like apparently, according to that video that they said was that Brad wanted to stay home a little bit more with family. But I mean, still stress level, it's still it's more. So yeah, continue.
it feels like it's so much more. And then you get to the point where I think you alluded to this. Maybe they're trying to make him the Pat Riley of whatever of the Celtics. And maybe it's the fact that he feels like these players. This is from Bill Simmons, by the way. I mean, this is not my take. The players have been burnt out by his, quote, like somewhat constant nagging, constant coaching. That like at some point, like Brown and Tatum, like they might just turn a shoulder on him and just like maybe not as religiously follow his coaching as they would have like in the 17 and 18
Right.
during those Cinderella years. So that I guess that's something you say. And like now, if you want to have control and like really get your point across for how you want the chemistry and how you want the team to be constructed, then you become the GM. So it's kind of you're trying to coach in a way, coach from the GM spot, as in like put the overall pieces together to get the product you would want on the court, and just hope like your head coach is just your puppet. Like the head coach is like a Brad Stevens clone or something like that.
Yeah.
Like that's all I could think. But like, and yes, Brad Stevens is great and he's super incredibly smart. Sure. And I mean he's great defensively and all of that. And yeah, on and on. We could talk about how much of I don't want to throw genius. We throw around genius. I think I'm pointing myself here. I throw around genius a lot, but I mean he's incredibly smart. So
He's one
you think
smart. Yeah.
so
Genius.
you're thinking maybe he could just carry on that as a GM, but I don't know. I just don't know if you're gonna have. I mean, you're into saying Mark Jackson should get a head coaching job. I don't know. Maybe the personalities might clash with if Brad Stevens is actually a strong personality behind behind the cameras, behind the lights. We'll see. It's I just don't know. I'm just worried about the head coaching aspect of it because I thought we were set at head coaching. If anything, I would think it would be easier to have a GM and coach bring in a GM that fit, like have Brad Stevens involved in the search process to get a GM that sees his vision for Celtics basketball, sees his vision of coaching, and like have a GM that'll do what Brad Stevens says from the coaching aspect. But I think it's harder the other way around, in my opinion. Maybe they find an Eric Spoelstra. Maybe this works out and they find their version of Eric Spoelstra and it works out. But I don't know. Brad Stevens is so young. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. Only thing I have to say is I felt like if Brad Stevens was, let's just say Brad Stevens became general manager of a small market team, like in Indiana or a Portland, a Charlotte, a Memphis, something like that, Oklahoma City even, I'd be like, Brad Stevens, I think he'll do well because these are small market teams. I think he's good at scouting. I think he'll bring the best out of players and stuff like that. Which brings me to the point, like I think Boston maybe should have considered someone like Sam Presti more for the Thunder.
They were in the running for Sam Presti for a while. I think they just got sick and tired. And I mean, when Danny Ainge wants to retire, that's his choice. So I think Sam Presti didn't want to leave.
Right. And I think Presti declined. That's right. Yeah, I believe so too. And Presti's a local guy too. And so it's like the perfect opportunity. But anyways, for Boston though, Boston's a city at, one, it's it's a small market, but the Celtics franchise is such a big brand, so it's not a small market at all. And so to have Brad Stevens there, I just don't think the personality fits as well. I think you just need like a really I don't want to say cutthroat, but just like a guy that's all business, and like a Danny Ainge, like when Riley was at the Knicks, like, or at the Heat, just like those guys, just like they know how to really um, they really know how to like manage and like do the big moves, because like for lack of a better term for baseball, I feel like Brad Stevens is like Billy Beane of the Oakland A's. Oakland A's, small team, good at like really making the best out of all the players that have Moneyball, right? But if you're talking about big market teams, the Red Sox, right? That's a big name in baseball. You had Theo Epstein there, and then he went to Cubs, and they won their first championship in forever too. Those guys, Theo Epstein's like he's a very savvy guy, but he's also a businessman. He will make aggressive deals, and so it is up to Brad Stevens to see if he is the guy that will be aggressive and will be at times, again, a little bit against public opinion, because it is the right business move. That's the thing that we need to see from him, basically.
Well, I mean, Theo Epstein learned from Billy Beane. I mean,
he did, yes.
Yeah. Billy Beane could have done what he did in, I think, Boston, if Boston would have listened to him. Like, I just finished reading Moneyball. So this is all fresh in my mind. That's a good book. I don't know. It
is a great book.
Great book.
Yep.
It's also like, it's just how ignorant people are sometimes to just staring right at you in the face. Things that are staring right at you in the face. But where are we going before this? I'd be kind of confused if Brad Stevens were to leave the Celtics head coaching to take a small market GM job somewhere else.
Yeah,
that's what I'm a little confused on. I think part of it also is, I mean, I kind of agree with this too, independent of what those four guys said in the ringer. But this isn't Bill Simmons, Jesus. This isn't Brad Stevens' last coaching. He's going to coach at some point again. I don't think this is the last time coaching. I think what this is he wanted to experiment with the same way, how Pop would be, he's like the GM and coach, if I'm not mistaken. Doc Rivers did that and kind of failed at it at the Clippers. I think he wants to see the GM aspect of it, and maybe because they know more likely than not, the being coach and GM is hard to do. It could be possible they're just looking for a stopgap coach, and this is more about just Brad Stevens personally. If they want Brad Stevens to be the next Popovich, but they want to give him some leeway, some room, they have him at coach. He's done the coaching part of the NBA. Now see if he understands the GM role very well. And if he understands the GM role fully, maybe, let's say not fire, but that stopgap coach leaves and he becomes like coach and GM. It's possible.
Yeah. Coaching GM these days is hard. I'm just going to say that right now.
Exactly. But I think maybe this is their shot at seeing, could he do both? Could he do both at the same time?
Sure.
And try and put it, try and put in the guide rails this way. I'm going to stick with that theory just because that's what makes the most sense in my mind. And that'll make me the happiest as a fan if that's what's happening, rather than, I just wanted to be a GM just because I just didn't like coaching that much. I was like, what, Brad? I don't know. But like you said, I mean, as much as we like Brad Stevens, as much as I'll gush about his after timeouts, and I'll gush about like how great he is defensively, and how even in college he was able to build up these teams in Butler. It's not like he's won a championship at either level. So I'm not going to give him the same, like, he's not Pat Riley. I'm sorry. He's just not there yet. Like, as much he's close to, I mean, he's as close as you get without winning a championship, but you still have to win a championship for me to give you that. I'm sorry. You still have to win a championship.
Exactly.
That's all I got to say. So, yeah. I think that's it from my end. What about you?
Yeah, that's it for me too. But exciting stuff in the NBA for sure.
All right. All right. Well, talk to you guys later.
Yeah. See you guys next time.